going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hazard Garage. And today's episode, we're gonna go through the price breakdown on how much I spent on the Miata. Now, first thing is the price of the car. We got this car off of Craigslist from a tow yard. Somebody abandoned it, couldn't pay the towing fees. He ended up selling it to the guy that owned the tow yard, who ended up selling it to us. We actually got a really good deal considering the prices for Miatas now. We got ours for $900, but honestly, I'm seeing people listing Miatas in pretty much the same condition that we got it, anywhere between, you know, $3,000 to $6,000. That's what they list it for. I don't know if people are actually paying those prices, but I've been seeing it for a while. They must be selling around that range. But luckily we got ours for the cheap, so 900 bucks. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna go over is just basic general maintenance, like the first oil change and transmission change fluids. That cost about $50. Obviously, through the rest of the build, lots of fluid changes and other random maintenance parts that we didn't include in the price. But for now, let's just say about $50 or so for maintenance. Next, we're moving on to the brakes of the car. So we got Stoptech Sport Brakes and just some generic blank rotors. That cost about $190 total. We're looking at about $97 for the rotors and about $93 or so for the front and rear brake pads. All right, so next let's move on to the exterior of the car. First off, we have our duckbill spoiler that we got from eBay. That cost us about $136. Next, we have our F1/3 brake light. That one cost us a very cheap $9. Moving on, the original front bumper that came with the car was obviously involved in an accident, and so we bought a used front bumper off of somebody. And also, a passenger tail light that needed to get replaced. That cost about $140. Next, we have our eBay replica front lip. Got that from eBay as well. That was $40. Moving on, we have our LED headlights that we replaced. Those cost us about $45. And since the car originally came with passenger side damage from an accident, we had to replace that fender. That fender cost us $140. These smoked turn signals we also got from eBay. Those cost us $62. As you can see, the car is still red, but obviously it is a different shade of red. That paint job, since we did it with Rustoleum spray cans, cost us about $100 in paint. And just for fun, these little Sparko toe straps, I got 2 of them. I got them for about $20. I think original price though, they're about $30. And the car originally came with a soft top, but as you know, because we had to install the roll cage, we got rid of that soft top since we couldn't use it anymore. I ended up selling that soft top. I was able to get about $100 for that. Now the car is also wide-bodied with fender flares. We got these carbon Miata fender flares off of somebody on Craigslist again. We paid about $240, I wanna say. That was kind of a deal. I think normally they're probably closer to around maybe like $300 or so, but we got ours for $240. Now in this category that I'm calling transmission, it's basically the drive line of the car. We got a OEM LSD off of the used market. That OEM Torsen diff was $400. We were able to sell our OEM open diff for about $100. So we made $100 back. When we first got the car, the drive shaft was making vibration and noises. So we had to replace that drive shaft. We were able to find a drive shaft on like OfferUp for about $50. We also were getting a speedometer cable like issue where it was making creaking noises, and we were able to get a speedo cable OEM brand new for about $80. There was also some other small stuff involved with the driveline that we didn't actually get on camera, and that includes a new slave cylinder, a new master cylinder, as well as a clutch switch. And some other small miscellaneous stuff. That ran about $18 for the clutch switch and about $54 for the slave and the master cylinder. We also replaced a bunch of seals and a new stage 1 clutch to handle the supercharged power. That cost about $440. All right, so moving on to the interior, in no particular order, we have a harness bar from Hard Dog. We got that, oh, I'm sorry, not a harness bar, the roll bar. Originally we bought a Boss Frog roll bar for about $400. Unfortunately, it didn't come with the backing plates or any hardware, and I was unable to find it because that company is no longer in business. So we ended up selling that entire roll bar setup to somebody for $430. We paid $400 for it. So we came out on top a little bit. We ended up replacing that roll bar with a Hard Dog M1 roll bar, which we bought for $300, and we also had to buy new hardware for $75. So $375 total for the roll bar. Next, there's some small bits that probably not that significant, but they include include a custom Corgi shift boot we got for 32 bucks, a cup holder replacement, $16, weighted shift knob for 40 bucks, had to get a new e-brake handle from a pick-apart, that was about $8. The Race Quip 5-point harness, we got 2 of those. That was $87 for both. That is not typical price. There was a bit of a mix-up with Amazon, so we actually got 2 harnesses for the price of 1. They're normally about $85 for a harness, $140 for the pair. We also had to get harness reinforcement plates for the 5th belt, and that's just a backing plate to prevent the bolts from going through the floor. That cost us $15 for both plates. We also got Sparco Sprint seats, 2 of those. That was a total of $640, which we also had to get seat rail adapters to be able to bolt them on car. Those were by Jazz Performance. Those adapters specifically for the Miata and specifically for the Sprint seats, that cost $132. For the steering wheel setup, we have a eBay special steering wheel short hub. It's basically an NRG short hub. That cost us $30. Works great, by the way. And we got an NRG quick release version 2.0. That cost us $84. I was able to sell some OEM parts from the interior to recoup some of that. We sold the OEM cockpit brace. That is the brace that goes behind the seats. We sold that for 30 bucks. I was able to get rid of the OEM seats. You know, they weren't in the best condition. I let those go real cheap, quick, 50 bucks. I was able to sell the OEM shift knob for 20 bucks and the OEM steering wheel for $30. We also replaced some of the pedals with OMP racing pedals. Those pedals cost us $25. And we also have our water temp, our boost, and our air fuel ratio gauges from Pro Sport. Those were $315. We also got a cheap Amazon single DIN radio that has a backup camera. So yes, this Miata has a backup camera. That cost us $53. Sparco steering wheel, originally it was $140. I ended up selling that to get a personal wheel with that doesn't have a dish. And we also got for fun a racing shift light. That cost us $108. And moving to another large category is our suspension. We got a lot of work done on that. So initially when we got the car, it was an accident, and so we had to replace a bunch of parts. I'll get to those in a minute, but we had to get in alignment because the car was absolutely undrivable anything past 40 miles an hour. So that initial alignment, we got a Groupon special, that was 50 bucks. We had to replace the upper control arm on the passenger side. We also replaced the upper control arm on the driver's side because it was old. And we also had to get new tie rods for both passenger and driver. So one side was $123, the other side was $135. We also got Racing Beat front sway bar and sway bar mount reinforcement kits. That was $147 for the sway bar, $47 for those sway bar braces. We got MST, like replica, generic, they call them MST Time Attack wheels, 15x8 plus 0 offset. Those wheels, all 4, cost $479. I was able to sell OEM wheels. That was 3 OEM wheels and 1 Steely wheel. Got rid of those real quick for 60 bucks total. And of course, we wrapped those in Falken RT660s. That's $225.15. That cost us $592. So other miscellaneous parts is we had to replace those engine mounts, ball joints, some lower control arms, a random front end link. Those cost $109, and then $5 for a random OEM end link. We also started the suspension with ground control coilover sleeves and Coney yellow shock. Those were not brand new, they're fairly new. I would say about maybe 500 or so miles on them, but we did get them used. Pretty fair deal. I believe we got them for $450 for the set. I did have to buy bump stops for those. That was $63 for the bump stops. But we ended up selling those Coney yellows and ground controls. So we got about $650 back. So we came up on those. But that went straight into the Meister R Club Race coilovers that we got from Mas Miata. They hooked it up. I think normally the price is about $1,200. I did have to pay for them. I just didn't have to pay full price. So we'll just put $1,200 on that. But I ended up getting the Meister R coilovers for about $1,044. So moving on to the engine, a lot of stuff done here. The EGR was throwing codes when we initially had it. We had a hard time, obviously, trying to get this thing smog. I had to buy a new, proper for my model year, used EGR valve that I got from eBay. That was about $24. Gasket for that was about $9. We also had to get a new throttle body assembly because we were having idling issues. That throttle body assembly used was $60. gaskets were 12. Now the EGR valve that came with the car, I was actually able to sell it because it was for, I believe, maybe like a 94 to 95, and I think my EGR was specifically for a 96, 97, so we were able to sell that EGR valve because it was correct, or it was working, it just wasn't the correct one. We were able to sell that EGR valve for $12. We also replaced the exhaust with a Monzo eBay exhaust. That cost $185 for that Monzo exhaust. I was able to sell the OEM exhaust for about 80 bucks. And we also had to replace the catalytic converter because that was also throwing another code, so we had to get that welded, and also I was able to find this aftermarket catalytic converter on eBay. The total cost for the catalytic converters and the install was 160 bucks. Next, because the engine is high mileage, I decided I want to replace all the engine seals, valve cover gasket, cam seals, crank seals, timing belt, all that stuff, water pump, whatnot, as well as a bunch of gaskets in the transmission. Those all together were a kit. They cost about $200. And also we kind of upgraded our power steering setup with a cooler. I had to replace some hoses, fluids, whatnot. All of that ran us 60 bucks. We also replaced the OEM radiator with an aluminum radiator. The aluminum radiator we got off of eBay. It was an eBay special. That cost us $100. I was able to get rid of the OEM radiator, but I just got a pack of Red Bulls for it, so I'm not gonna count that. And then next, we got our Kraftwerks Supercharger. This kit was fairly brand new. It wasn't new. Someone just had it and they just never installed it. We got a pretty decent deal, I'd say. It depends, because you'll find out we had to replace some things to improve it. But the kit, as it was, we got it for $2,500. We had to end up getting new fuel injectors because for whatever reason we just couldn't get enough fuel. Those fuel injectors ended up costing $320. And then also the engine management that came with the Kraftwerks kit just wasn't doing it for me. I ended up getting Trackdog fuel and timing cards, and those were not cheap at all. It was a Black Friday special. We got it for 675 bucks. Now moving on to just some random miscellaneous stuff that I just didn't categorize. Hopefully when you see this, I'll try to categorize it a little bit better and maybe correct a bunch of the words that might pop up that might be different for what I'm saying. But yeah, moving on to miscellaneous stuff. So we got, again, in no particular order, the bikini top that you see on top of that. We got that for $136. I was able to sell some stuff. I sold some random parts, like a fuel hose cover that I got an extra part from Pick Apart. That was 40 bucks. Some headlight arms that I bought to replace the ones that were broken here before I decided to just glue the one that I had. I think we sold those for like 15 bucks. Some other random parts for another $15. So just some extra random stuff that we were able to make a little bit of money off of. Now I had a fuel cover that was completely rusted through when we were doing the roll bar. I had to get a replacement. Luckily, I was able to find this at a Pick Apart, so that was about $28. The battery that came with the car, that was not the battery that's supposed to fit, but we were able to get a lawnmower battery, and that works perfectly good. That cost about $60 for that setup. I also replaced, some of the rear brake lights with LED bulbs. Those LED bulbs ended up costing $30. Oh wow, I didn't even say this in the beginning, but registration for the car, that was about $100. We ended up refreshing the roll bar a little bit with some chassis paint. That was about $9. I had to get a bunch of bolts and riv nuts and tools and stuff like that to install the wide body and the rear trunk spoiler, and all of those cost about 50 bucks. Valve cover paint, we painted the valve cover with wrinkle paint. That paint cost about $30. Full disclosure, I kind of effed up on it a little bit. That's why it was 30 bucks. If I did it the first time around, it would probably only cost like $15. And also we spent money on cleaning up the wiring with a secondary fuse box. So that whole setup cost about 60 bucks. Now we also got some other random bits that maybe I might have missed. I know I didn't mention anything about the oil catch can. Miata was grateful enough to send me one to install and show you guys. So that didn't cost me anything, but if you were to purchase that oil catch can yourself, that would have set you back about $150. Now, all in all, hopefully I'm not missing anything, but yeah, essentially that's pretty much the whole car. In terms of what I can remember that I paid for, at least maybe some of the big stuff. The big reveal, all in all, this car cost me about $11,926. We could probably round it up to anywhere between, let's say, $12,000 to build, to take a car from the tow yard and turn it into this wide body supercharged track car. Not bad, I'd say. That's actually, for the amount of work that we did to it, $12,000 is a pretty solid deal. Well, I hope that was informational. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching the build. For those that have watched it so far. Yeah, and I hope you enjoyed that price breakdown. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more build videos, and we'll see you in the next one.